Alrighty, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to DAMA UK's very first webinar for 2024. We have tons and tons of great webinars coming on this year, but we thought we'd start with something that's really front and center in the world at the moment. So in about 2 minutes, I'm going to hand over to Greg Freeman to go through his slides and talk to you and share with you all sorts of great stuff. Once again, please remember, post your questions in the question area. It should be on the right hand side of your screen. I will be managing the questions. I will feed Greg some as we go through. I will just say that there is one slight issue that I have. I'm going to be leaving this call at 1:15, but that doesn't mean you get to stop. Greg has agreed to continue on till 1:30. So if you see me go, I promise you I haven't fallen off my chair. I have got to leave. But with that being said, I just want to say, Greg, it's so great to have you. I'm so excited to hear what you have to say. And take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Sue. So really appreciate everyone taking the time to come and learn about a topic that I'm so passionate about, and hopefully it fits into very nicely the kind of DAMA principles, and obviously upskilling that entire organization in the things that matter to the data organization. So my name's Greg Freeman. I'm the CEO of Data Literacy Academy. At Data Literacy Academy, we help large organizations to roll out data literacy and culture and upskilling programs across the entire organization. And that's something I'll go into as we go through the talk. But it's a journey in itself, and I'm glad that there's so many people, because we've seen super high sign-up numbers. Could just be that it's the first one of the year and everyone's back in the new year, super excited. But hopefully it's an element of data literacy being a really key priority for you all now as well, like it is for us. So in terms of the session outcomes, and being an education company, we do like to focus on the learning outcomes, and hopefully this is my promise to you that we'll cover as much of this in this session as we can, and you'll walk away with these learning outcomes. But first thing I want to get across is that develop an awareness of the structured change management plan that's required for this space, because right now there is a status quo in the organization, there is in every organization, and thinking about this as just training isn't going to work, and it has to be considered a change of culture, a change of process within the organization, as well as it is training. Through an understanding of data literacy and culture best practice, you'll be able to champion the data literacy program at whatever stage it's at, whether it's a blank sheet of paper right now or you're well into it, and its strategic benefits to your colleagues in the business teams. And we'll also help you develop a strategically aligned business case for building a data literacy program at your organization in 2024, because we see this as one of the biggest challenges. Where do we start? How do we make everybody aware that this is valuable? And most importantly, how do we get it paid for? Because we all know that's a factor, right? So how do we build that business case? But it's probably there's some funny upload gone with the from the PowerPoint version to the system, the BrightTalk system there. But hopefully that's a single slide challenge, and we'll see as it goes through. But on the left hand side, we've got what is typically the accepted definition of data literacy, and if there's anyone from Gartner on the call, we're certainly not here to question this. It's a very good definition. It covers a lot of what we think about and consider part of the data literacy journey. So the ability to read, write, communicate data in context, including an understanding of data sources and constructs, analytical methods and techniques applied, and the ability to describe the use case, application and resulting value. It's a very detailed description. It's a very detailed definition. I suppose from our side, what we see is that it's quite a data-y definition of data literacy. And there's a few challenges that you'll face when you're trying to engage the business and upskill thousands of people across an organization that probably aren't considered in that definition of data literacy. And if this was a triangle and a pyramid, you'd be able to see that at the bottom of that pyramid are the two elements of data literacy that we've added as key components. And a lot of our area of focus early on in programs is in the confidence and the mindset. Because for a lot of people, as we'll find out when we get into the data literacy problem, the data literacy challenge starts with a lack of confidence, a lack of comfort, and a lack of perceived value in data. So these are all things that we've got to get people in the right mindset of. So it's not that that definition isn't appropriate, because you'll see from kind of understand upwards in the pyramid, it's definitely in line with our thinking. We just believe for this bigger problem across the organization, we have to take into consideration the confidence as the platform and the mindset as the platform. So what is the data literacy problem? And as I'm going through, as Sue said, if you've got any questions, do feel free to put them in the chat. I'll answer them as we go, but we'll also have a section at the end for Q&A. So again, there's some formatting issues with the BrightTalk, so I won't mention those again, but just consider that anything that's a bit off on the slide is through that upload process. So this is the data literacy problem in large organizations as we see it. And that is that as much as people like to say there's not, there are two types of people in organizations at this stage. On the right-hand side of the diagram, as we look at it, you've got business professionals who are very good at their day jobs. So they're excellent at sales, marketing, finance, procurement, manufacturing, whatever it might be. But ultimately, they're rarely as data literate, rarely as data confident, rarely as data first minded in their processes and their behaviors as most people in this room would like them to be. And that's across data governance, it's across data literacy, it's across all those areas. On the left-hand side, though, you've got a group of people who are data professionals and much more data literate than the business people. We appreciate that. However, what we see is that those people actually sometimes have got gaps in their business acumen, their commercial acumen, their soft skills even at times. And what that means, and I hate to say it because I know I'm in a room full of data professionals, and that's always a controversial topic, but we are super on the fence with this. We see it as an everybody problem, not a one side or the other problem. So we see a two-sided knowledge gap and a two-sided communication gap, that really solving this data literacy and solving this data culture problem, it's all about closing those two gaps from both sides. So you need to teach your business people data. Of course you do. It's the primary reason that people work with us. It's the primary thing that people are trying to solve through their data literacy program. However, don't go amiss with the thing on the left-hand side, which is about how can we help our data professionals work more ably with our business professionals to extract that value and give them the skills to talk the language and talk with confidence and talk about business problems in the right way. And this is a data curve, data literacy curve. It's obviously an adaptation, I guess, of the data maturity curve, which we've designed specifically for data literacy. And I only share this slide really just to show the journey that we believe somebody should go on through the data literacy journey, and really to flag one of the key challenges we see. And that's that in a lot of programs we come across that are considered data literacy programs, they'll focus on the democratized soft skills upwards, because those are the skills that as data professionals we're comfortable with, we see as the most important. So in that democratized soft skills, it's the best way we found to talk about skills that are data specific, but not hard skills like building dashboards and ELT and Transform and Python, etc. So things like data governance awareness, data management awareness, MDM, those types of things fall in that democratized soft skills. Into the hard skills, which is obviously about the hard skills of data, the languages, the coding, the dashboarding, upwards. However, your biggest challenge for 80 to 90% of a large enterprise organization are in this bottom part of the curve, which is they don't commonly understand the value of data. They don't see how it's going to help them in their day jobs. We always say we meet loads of people who want their job to be easier. Who doesn't? we meet loads of people who want their results from their job to be better. Who doesn't? It's a guarantee. We're all aiming for that every day in work. but not many people know how data drives that job becoming easier or those results coming better. And that, again, is something to be aware of, because as data professionals and data teams, we tend to meet those people in our organization who are enthusiastic about data, who are coming to us for data sets and with data problems. It's actually the silent majority that's your biggest challenge, really, to create that data culture and overcome the problem that I put on the last slide. And that's really where the change management piece comes in. It's about unlocking the silent majority a lot of the time. So how do we think about creating an understanding of the business side, an awareness to the business side, an understanding of where they are today within the organization, what are their individual levels, what are their department levels, what work do we have to do to get them thinking that this is an important topic in their world? And if you put it in other mindsets, if you think of something that right now you've just got no interest in at all. So for some people that might be politics, for some people it might be sport, for some people it might be classical music, whatever that might be. If you were told you've got to learn about this, it's important, I'm telling you it's important, and I was going to take you through a journey over the next 6 months to learn about Beethoven and Mozart, you'd probably wonder why I was doing that. And that's the same in data for most people, right? So first of all, we've got to win those hearts and minds. And we do that by creating a really meaningful change process, really meaningful internal comms program filled with events and copyright and bits of copy and videos and all these different things that we need to deliver to really unlock that willingness, as well as obviously influencing those people top of the business who need to drive this down within their teams. So throughout the change journey, we're not just thinking about marketing, we're thinking about how can we enhance those one-to-one relationships we have with the executive team, with the senior leadership team. And in that planning and preparation phase, which is a key element of the change management process that we run to really unlock this in places like Bentley and SSE and Aston Union, all the companies we work with, very, very sector agnostic. Really, this problem is very, very homogenous, really. It's everywhere. So we do need to understand the learner's view of things as well. And I'll come on to how we fit the baseline assessment and we fit understanding them in. But actually, it is important to take the time to sit down with people at the front line of the business units on the other side. On top of that, you've got the embed and enhance. So here, the change management at a corporate level that we're thinking about is something called Lewin's change model, which is the concept there's a status quo right now. We have to unfreeze that status quo. We have to create the change through the engagement, through the education. And most importantly, we have to refreeze that status quo. And this can be the bit that people really forget. That embed and enhance. How do we make this cultural? How do we make it a way of working? How do we build a target operating model off the back of it? That's all part of the change management process that you need to go through. So if we're thinking again, this is just a quick tick box exercise. If we put some self-service learning videos out there, it'll work. It won't, and that's really, really important to know. And on top of that, we've got the ADKAR model, which is a really people-focused change model that helps us implement the Lewin model. So awareness, that's all about the marketing, the comms. Desire, it's all about finding those change champions. You want to identify early in your program what we would call key strategic cohorts, people who you need to engage to drive the people who sit next to them to be involved in this as change champions. Then you've got your knowledge, and then you've got your ability. And I want to talk about our approach and what we see from all the experience we've got. And to be really clear, my degree is actually in teaching, and we believe heavily in the educational theory or the pedagogy of it. So the ability piece is massively important in how we implement this. Fundamentally, we do not believe that self-service learning, whether that's video learning that I've got to do on my own time by myself, is going to be the best way for these people to learn, when actually their biggest challenge is the kind of learned fear or taught fear. So there's a concept of learned fear in education, which is I've taught myself the subjects I can't do. So on a personal level, mine's languages. I tell me tomorrow that I've got to start learning French, and it definitely won't be on Duolingo. It'll be sit me down, work me through it. I need an educator. I need someone that I can ask questions with. And we do believe that that gets the best results from the education path. So again, if you're thinking about doing this meaningfully in 2024, you need to think about how you're going to be able to hit those first few hundred or kind of first early thousands, depending on the size of your organization, those key strategic cohorts with a really meaningful learning path, not just something that is a tick box. And then we get through to how do we actually baseline people? So learning needs analysis, really core part of any learning program, any kind of data literacy program, but it's really a core learning path theory rather than a data literacy specific one. You need to do this, and you need to do it as well as you possibly can, because it's going to tell you what you can and can't teach people. It's going to tell you what they will learn or what they'll disengage with. And ultimately, it's going to tell you what you need to achieve in order to get them to the learning outcomes you want to achieve. So first of all, we need to talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect. Hopefully some people on the call are aware of it, but I'm also conscious not everybody will be. So in short, in a nutshell, Dunning-Kruger is the concept that the more we know about a topic, the more we realize we don't know about it. And the less we know about a topic, the more we think we know about it, because we haven't got that breadth of understanding to see the things that we are blind spots. And in my experience, data is probably the topic where most people are a victim of Dunning-Kruger, especially those out there in the business. So let me put that in context for you. You will have met people in your careers who can do some Excel functions, and if you speak to them, they think they're a data scientist. There's no more to it. How can there be? I can do my Excel, I know it, I'm good to go. Versus, hopefully, some of these people in the room right now, if you're in that kind of data project management space or that data product management space, you might not consider yourself a data expert, but I can guarantee you're actually far more data literate than that person who thinks they know a bit of Excel and therefore they're a data scientist. So there is a lot of noise in the space around subjective kind of survey-based analysis of the organization. Let's ask people where they think they are. Let's ask people what gaps they think they've got. Ultimately, that really isn't the solution to this problem. If I give you an example, we did a recent cohort with just over 500 learners, and the person who scored highest on the self-assessed, so they basically deem themselves a data translator in the world of business side personas, scored the absolute objective lowest in the objective analysis that we do. And that's a really good example of why it isn't appropriate to ask people what problems they've got, because ultimately the world of data, they just don't know it. So how can you make that analysis of the individuals and their learning needs objective is task number one really in the learning process. The next thing we need to do it well is support and allow for differentiation within the outcomes of that. This isn't a catch-all solution, okay? It is easier to create one learning path. We get that. That's just economics, right? It's quicker, it's cheaper, it's less work. However, the reason we have 7 learning paths is that there's lots of different types of people in your organization, all who require different levels of education. And you need to be able to allow for that, because first thing you'll understand with education, differentiation is one of the hardest challenges. And if you don't differentiate, you'll either disengage people because they know too much already, so it's boring, or if you try and throw too much at them, they'll disengage because it's just going to overwhelm them and they're going to want out. So it's got to be a differentiated experience based on where someone is today. And finally, it has to be scalable, because this is a big old problem to solve. And it's nice to solve it with 12 people, 15 people at once. Of course, that's a good starting point. But ultimately, you need to have a plan for getting this out to thousands of people if you're in an enterprise, taking into consideration all the bits we've talked about already. And differentiation is where personaing comes in. So really important, we don't actually use role-based or seniority-based personas. And that is because, I'll give you an example, pick your sales team if you've got one, or your marketing team if you've not got a sales team. You could walk into their office today, sit 10 of them down, all the same background. 2 of them, they could say to you, I'm so happy to see you, I love data, I'm right here for you. 2 of them, I've been in this business 20 years, I already know what I'm doing, I don't need data. And 6 are kind of ready to get on that bus. So that's where this differentiation piece comes in. We have to know who our personas are. And really, it's not someone's job title. It's not someone's seniority or level. Exec teams are as good an example of this as any. It's really the mindset, the engagement, and the work they already do with data that drives how ready they are. So we want to be thinking constantly about what behaviors are we able to observe as objectively as possible, and what learning outcomes do we want from those. So those role bases, those seniority bases, become our end points for the program, not our starting points on that data literacy curve that I mentioned earlier. Because you're right, we might want all of our senior salespeople to get to this level, but actually if some of them are starting here, some of them are starting here, and some of them are starting here, it's a different journey to take them there. So that's where the behavioral personaing becomes so important.
Right. Greg, I'm going to interrupt you a sec. I have a couple of questions. So Maria from Vodafone, I'm just checking to see if we can make them available. Typically, this is recorded, and you can always go on to Bright Talk afterwards because the whole session will be recorded. Then Anna from Syngenta, she asked, can you please repeat the name of the change management framework you were talking about?
Yeah, so we use Lewin's model for change at a corporate level. So Lewin, Lewin, and we use ADKAR, which is by ProSci, for the kind of more persona-based concepting.
Okay, great. And then she asked another question, so there was a tool question. I'll ask that first. Olu wants to know what tool can be used for the learning needs analysis.
Data Literacy Academy, or you work it out for yourselves. We are, like, to my knowledge, one of the only people that does an objective business-wide one. So I actually don't know anybody else who does an objective business-wide one for the types of skills you want to be testing for your business people. But ultimately, yeah, that's something that our technology does. So you could use us.
All right, thank you. And then the last question at the moment is Anna again from Syngenta. Could you please bring a specific example of the objective assessment of the learning needs?
Yeah, I mean, really, ours is a 60 question multiple choice exam that learners sit. A lot of people think, oh, that's a lot up front, but you've got to think how the change management process has already brought them into the journey of wanting to find the right fit for themselves and the learning. But yeah, I mean, we've got a big bank of questions that allows us to send it out to hundreds and thousands of people, and it tests them, obviously multiple versions of each question and stuff, that it gives us that baseline against the data set that we can use. But that's literally what I mean, actually. If it was Anna that asked a question, it's a real kind of like test of what do they know about the data world, what do they know about basics, more advanced stuff, to see where they fall on that objective spectrum.
Great. One final question, then I'll let you move on. Yep. So Kelly from Oxford University Press, she wants to know, how do you label your personas? So at the moment on your slide, you've got Tolu, which is the name, or do you use their level of expertise?
So we go with naming. We find it's more engaging for the people. However, I mean, ultimately, like things like data disengaged, data skeptic for the most basic people. We call Tolu a data enthusiast. We have the data translator persona. Like these are all bits that we do use as well. We just find giving them a face helps you remember them better. So we give them a face and a name as well as the underlying kind of bracketed name. Okay. And then you need a curriculum. So this is just one example, and I won't harp on about it, but this is one of our examples. This is for the kind of data skeptic persona in essence. And you've got to get it right, because that Foundations of Data module, it's all about getting them comfortable with data, getting them wrapped around data, feeling like they've got safe spaces to work in, all those types of things. And ultimately, if I already feel like I'm a Tolu, who's my data enthusiast persona, I don't feel like I need that. I feel like I want the new skills. I feel like I've got a status quo that is needing to improve. And again, we need a different learning path for those people, and they've got to be treated differently. Again, if I try and talk to my data experts, and that's not a bad way of describing them, to be fair, about foundations of data, they're going to laugh in my face, never look at it again. So we've got to get that right. You've got to have enough curriculum access to make it really meaningful. And just to repeat, really, both sides have to work on it. So business professionals do need to become more data literate. We're not in denial of that at all. It's a really, really big problem and the focus of most of our programs. But to link to directly everything to that strategic value piece, it's in capital letters for a reason. Data professionals need to become more business literate and improve their soft skills as well. And that's something you need to think about your learning paths for. But what is this not? I like to do this just because I think I have to hit this message home, because it's almost not worth starting and getting wrong. You're better to put it off 3 to 6 months if you don't feel like you've got meaningful investment, than do something like roll a load of LinkedIn learning out, it go badly and you don't win, and then all of a sudden you've got a more disengaged group than you had before. So firstly, it's not a tick box. You've got to get it right. You've got to put the investment in. It isn't just about the data team. It's way easier to train data people in data. We get that. Give them some of those tools that already give them LinkedIn learning. I mean, if you roll out a well-curated LinkedIn learning path or a Pluralsight path to data professionals, they should engage because it's their job and they should want to get better at it. But it's not. It's about the entire business to really create that culture at scale, and that is what you need. And our business actually exists from the ground up because I was involved with too many programs where we spent a lot of money on technology and on process and didn't do the people bit, and therefore they were deemed unsuccessful. And that isn't how it should be. You've got to align your people strategy to those big, exciting bits of technology that you do. It's also not just about your execs. We do need to win those hearts and minds. We do need to bring them on the journey with us. But again, it's not just about them. It's about the bigger picture. And unfortunately, it's not easy, and it's certainly not cheap. I mean, some of the better internal programs we see are kind of 7-figure kind of headcount, that type of thing. It's not quite that when you do it with a third party like us, but it's certainly not $5,000 to get this right. So you've got to remember that there's a budget that's got to be acquired, and we'll talk about that in a second. Sue, did you have a
I have my own question.
Oh, okay.
There's none up there. There's my own question. So I am one of those data people that spend my life going around and talking to people about data storytelling and having storytelling skills, because typically as data people we're quite willing to sort of flip out our Excel and say, look how cool this data is, and of course everybody else around us just falls over in boredom. So how much of that is part of what you're teaching as well? You know, what you think of is within data literacy is to turn it into a story rather than a boring Excel spreadsheet.
Funny you mentioned storytelling. It's the one topic which exists in every single curriculum we run, because whether we can objectively tell you, controversially going to say this, even data professionals have work to do. So even on our data specialist kind of curriculums, we teach data storytelling, but even those people who are ground zero, they're starting to consume data because we've just unlocked their hearts and minds and they're starting to get on board with it. They're going to look at your Power BI, they're going to look at your Tableau, your ThoughtSpot, and they're going to go and tell other people about that. They need to be able to interpret that and communicate it to managers, to colleagues, all that type of stuff. So yeah, storytelling is an incredibly important tool for everybody to get better at, whether it is dashboard design, whether it is use of big numbers, whether it is how we attach the business narrative or play the business narrative back. Super important skill. And yeah, we're big fans.
Perfect. And I've just had a comment here that totally agree about storytelling. It's Ian from ISS. Yeah, and again, humans respond to stories better than anything else, which is a really great way of looking at it.
They do.
I have a question from Lewis from BP. How do you establish a common data language in a world where the same terms mean very different things to different stakeholders? Do you use an established framework?
We use DAMA in some contexts. So a lot of our kind of data stewardship, data ownership certifications are underpinned by DAMA, because we believe it's not openly, but we believe it's a really good framework to stay truthful with. But yeah, Ian, it's a great question, right? Definitions is one of the hardest parts of this whole subject, and part of the way we run curriculum is that we customize them to organizations so that we ensure we're using the right language. But as an upfront process, that means that you and anybody that you're doing this with, whether it's your L&D team, whether it's your partner, your consultancy, whoever it is, whether it's us, you need to just agree what language is going to become the norm, and then you need to do your best to get it out there. I mean, it's we know it's an impossible task, right? How people define even simple stuff like revenue differs, how people define data management differs, all those different, how people define a dashboard differs. But you've got to have something that you can start that journey with, and it's actually about having a curriculum that you're all agreed on, and you're kind of driving forward within the organization. But I wish I could tell you, especially across an organization of your size, that this would be a quick fix. It's not going to be, but you've got to start that journey with the right principles, and that's having an agreed set within your curriculum.
Yeah, and it's a simple business glossary. And, I mean, people ask me, do you need a tool to do a business glossary? And the bottom line is, it's great if you have one, because they're often quite useful. But at the end of the day, if you've got a list of business terms with different definitions and people agree to them, you've already made a start. Sorry. Sorry, I'm not supposed to get to point the conversation.
That's fine, but I mean, there's loads of data governance professionals in the room, right? Like having that glossary and feeding it in. So something I'll get onto on the next. Is it the next slide?
Then you go for it.
Right, I'm gonna transition off that point. There's something we'll cover here is where data governance and the data governance framework plays in with this, but ultimately, one thing we're going to talk about is how to get money to spend on this, because that is one thing you've got to do, right? It isn't going to be cheap. It's going to be, even to start it off properly, it's a 5-figure process, and it's going to become a 6 or 7-figure process over the next few years to depend on the size of your organization. So why would people do that beyond just making people more skilled in data? Equally, we do try and err away from that word skill for this reason, because skills seems like a very learning and development piece, which it absolutely is. Like, this is an upskilling, of course it is, but actually this is a cultural program from the data or the IT or the IS team. It's not just getting everybody a few data skills, because fundamentally, you can't have a data culture without data literacy. The word cult within culture is everybody thinking the same, speaking the same, believing the same about a topic. So if we don't get everybody to a common language, to a common mindset of value, to a common mindset of how to solve business problems, we can't have a data culture. We can't talk about it. We can't make it useful. Equally, there is so much money spent on technology and process and headcount in a transformation program, or when you're building data products, and actually the audience is what matters. It won't be adopted if it's not understood. So if we don't get people data literate, why would they start using your new fancy ERP tool or your new fancy BI tool? Because they don't understand the value of it. They don't understand what it's telling them. They don't understand why data quality is important and why they need to change their behaviors of days gone by. So that comes down to data literacy, because data is a human problem. That's our big message, right? Data is a human problem. Technology accelerates data in a really, really effective and important way. But how people engage with your programs, whether people, when you give a sales team a great product, I mean, I've got a really interesting use case where a sales team was given the most amazing data product. It told them who to speak to, who to buy, who would buy from them, what message they'd use, all based on all that data you've ever wanted in your life. Nobody used it and it got thrown out because they worried it would take their jobs. Like, that is not a great use of your money, because you've not got the people right to adopt it. So again, tying this program of data literacy as a budget line in a bigger transformation adoption or a bigger ROI on a data product piece is going to be valuable. And then for data governance, because we are talking DAMA here, and it's obviously like data governance is a big participating group within the team. Data literacy and the data governance framework are one and the same. They're not separate. You will not get people to adopt data stewardship behaviors or data ownership behaviors if they don't understand the value of data, if they don't understand what good practices and good principles are going to mean in terms of business results, in terms of outputs on dashboards, in terms of how they can use data. And if they haven't got the skills and the knowledge to do that, it's going to go on deaf ears. Right now, we see, sorry if you, I don't know how well you can see me on the screen, but I've got my hands split. Right now, we see data stewardship frameworks and data literacy frameworks being implemented like this. They should be implemented like this. If I'm going to get somebody to be a data steward, they better be data literate, not just good at privacy and life cycle and ethics. Because the best example I've come up with, and I'm sorry if you're not into sport so far, is if you ask somebody to referee a football game and they don't care about football, they are not going to follow the rules or care about the rules. So probably resonates harder with the people who don't like football, actually. But that's kind of how you've got to think about it as data governance professionals. Data literacy is the carrot, because I hate to say it, governance very often is seen as the stick. So if we're going to sell them a stick, we have to empower them with the carrot. So if I was a data governance manager or data governance director today, I'd be thinking, how does data governance help me embed that framework I've been aiming for? How does data literacy help me embed that data governance framework I've been aiming for? And this is what it comes down to, right? If people don't understand something, they don't trust it, and therefore they don't use it. I have to trust something to use it, and I have to understand something to trust it. So if we can't get them to understand through literacy, we're never going to get to that trust and usage in those adoption frameworks. Right, finally, because I've got 36 minutes through, and we're just about there, I think. But executing the business case. Firstly, it has to be a strategic data or IT initiative. The reason why, and it comes down to that third bullet point, is we love L&D. They're a super key stakeholder within programs. If you try and do this without L&D, you're going to fail. If you try and do this without organizational change, you're going to fail. But L&D budget is much more fragile than data budget, because take a compliant organization, it's not because they don't want to keep upskilling people in data, upskilling people in any other subject, but if compliance changes, if the FCA changes something or a regulator changes something, quite rightly, a lot of the L&D budget will shift towards getting the business ready for that type of regulatory change. It's an absolute no-brainer, and it's the right thing to do. So this has to come. We like participation of budget from L&D, especially in early stages, but longer term, this has to be part of our data strategy, and it has to be part of our transformation strategy, and that's where the budget comes from. Equally, does doing it ground up work that well? No, not really. This needs to come from a C-1 within the data and IT org. Whether you are that person sat here today, or you're thinking, how can I get that person to listen? You do need to be that person, and this should be a real priority for you, because if you are the most senior person in the organization, this is what's going to generate the amazing PR for the business, that comms plan, that like what data does, what data's achieving, all those pieces, it's going to come through this program, because it's the first time you'll really meaningfully have engaged the entire business unit in this, and that's why you should be part of those conversations, and you should be driving it as part of your strategy. And then the final thing that we'd really encourage, and it doesn't need to be that this is entire exec team being like, we are ambassadors of this at first, but you do really need a co-sponsorship from a commercial executive. So borderline finance is okay, because they're still technically commercial, but if you can get a sales leader or a marketing leader or a manufacturing leader to really champion this with you, so when you're having those difficult conversations at board level about budget, about cuts and all those types of things, this keeps its place. That pairing with a commercial executive can be really valuable. But that's the big expensive piece that you need to be thinking about longer term, or just in the short term, but it's still something pretty meaningful to do. There's a few things that you can do that really make a good start for you, that are more implementable as kind of today. So having a data month, I am aware that actually if you're in a business probably above 10,000 people, buying airtime for that kind of data month piece can be so big and difficult. So, even if it's a data week or a data day, those types of things can be a really nice anchoring point for the kickoff of a data literacy program. Hopefully, you've already started to build some communities of practice. these are a really big part of that kind of reinforcement and embedding piece within the communities, within the program. But actually, DNA communities shouldn't just include data professionals. There should be, for us, at least once a quarter, where anybody in the business can come and listen to all that good work you've done, all those things you're going to be doing in future, suggest ideas to you. One of the biggest measurements for this whole process should be, is this generating more use cases from the business? That's one of those things that we are measuring throughout our programs, because learning and development measurements, like did people learn, did they attend, all that stuff's good. Actually, the measurement has to be strategically aligned. So we need to be thinking way outside the box from L&D metrics and thinking, do we get more people talking data, more people using data? And how we measure that is going to come partly through communities. And get started with your data literacy program, because it's going to have a really, really meaningful impact. As I said, we'll just return to those session outcomes before the Q&A. So we are going to finish with a Q&A, but hopefully you've developed awareness that this is more than just a training program. It's a change management piece as well. Hopefully you go away with a little bit more willingness and confidence in how you'll champion the strategic benefits of data literacy, because it is more than just training. It's all about those adoption pieces, those value pieces, and hopefully there's a little bit there about how you'll build a business case and get yourself some money to do this, because it's just the most vital piece as we see it in terms of engaging the business and making technology programs work. Q&A. I will say, I think I was told I was allowed to say this, but if you want to talk to us about data literacy, you can do. You can visit us on www.dl-academy.com right now, or you can and press the big green button, or you can contact us at hello-at-dl-academy.com, or I think my colleague Sarah is actually possibly going to post it in the questions, just so you can link directly to the registration thing, but we'll see if that happens. I'm going to focus on the Q&A now. So Q&A.
Greg, at the moment, I think you've answered every question that we've had, including an extra one from me, but that doesn't mean anything, because I always have a bucket full of questions. It is just it. And of course, for me, getting people to understand their data and use it in the very best way that they can is such a passion of mine. And because I'm director of data governance and product data at Elsevier, and we really are looking at data literacy and how to turn our organization into an organization that cares about their data but understands it.
Yeah.
So that's really, this has been really great. I've not had any more questions at this stage. Oh, wait, yes, Sarah has done that. So she's posted this.
Yeah, if anybody just wants to look at the questions and pick up the link, that'll take you straight to book a free chat about it.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Sarah, thanks, because this is really great. Guys, just remember that this session has been recorded and is available on Bright Talk after this. So let your colleagues know and let them also hear what Greg has had to say about data literacy. And I will tell you, it's been a great session today. It honestly resonates with me. I do feel, though, that as a data governance person, I would like more carrots than sticks, but I do realize I've got a lot of sticks.
That's it, Sue, right? Like I think we'd all love this to be very carrot driven, but ultimately, actually, especially in the governance space, it's not always. And we've just got to make sure that we're creating those carrot experiences with data that actually drive the adoption of the things that are a little bit more kind of frameworky and controlled.
Great, thank you. And just so, by the way, please feel free to find us on LinkedIn, either myself, and I'm really good because I'm the only person of my whole name ever in the whole wide world. But I think you might find more than one Greg Freeman. But
yeah, I'm happy to connect though. I'm happy to connect. More than happy to connect.
One last question from Julie. We are looking to see how we can share this. Remember that this is a Bright Talk channel, and we don't provide. We don't have the capability of sending this to people who registered on Bright Talk. So we are looking to see if we can put it on our DAMA site. So we'll deal with that, and we'll let you'll see it soon enough. But with that being said, Greg, wow, loved it. Thank you so much. I can't wait to hear you in a few months' time when we come back to this.
Yeah, we're going for round. Hopefully, we've earned round 2 for a different take on data literacy in Q2. All right, wonderful. I'm excited.
Thank you, everybody.
Brilliant.
Nice chat. Okay, bye.